Good morning. It's June 18 and it's 6:03 a.m. Good morning to our listeners. I hope you guys have had a great week, great and productive week so far. And once again, this is Mark Yu,
And this is Wawi Santos.
and welcome to the Mark Yu and Wawi Show.
Good
Welcome to our
morning.
show, guys. Just a reminder before we start. So we're available aside from YouTube. You guys can listen to us now in Spotify and Google Podcasts. For those other Spotify and Google, you can download our podcast and listen to it while you're doing something else. If you don't have the time to watch our YouTube videos, disclosure lang again before we begin. Me and Kuya Wawi record this podcast at least once a week. We're both physical therapists in our
Mhm.
profession. We are practicing here in the US, but we share the same passion in investing. So most of the time we invest. We've been investing for years now. I myself have been investing since 2011, and Kuya Mawi has been investing in the stock market since 2018, right, Kuya Mawi?
Correct. Yes.
So we're very passionate about this. Every day we have a Facebook Messenger group where every day we share our findings about the markets, like relative information that would help our members as well as our listeners through their path of journey in investing. Once again, we would like to thank you, our listeners that are submitting their questions and yung feedbacks. We appreciate it because but this is your way of showing that you support us, and also by through subscribing and liking. So Kuya Wawi, napansin ko lang sa YouTube natin, no? Although we have low count in videos, video viewings, at least our videos are averaging at least 50 to 60 or 70 views sa YouTube. Tapos sa podcast naman, nasa 10 to 20 a week. So, I mean, average at least. So it means that there are people that are listening and following us.
So if you guys find value in what we talk about, kahit medyo boring minsan ang pinag-uusapan namin, we'll try to make it simple for everyone to understand.
Sure.
Just click and subscribe.
Survive.
Well, we're trying to
actually,
survive too by
we would,
investing.
we would like to survive investing for sure over the long term because that's how the game is played. You generate gains over the long term. Like in our previous episode, we talked about yung compounding, the value of compounding. So on this week's episode, medyo busy tayo during this Wall Street week, no, Kuya Wawi? So
Yeah.
we're gonna start,
Mhm.
dissecting
Hectic.
those activities. So we have what's up with Wall Street. We'll discuss several topics. Tapos we are gonna answer some questions. Two questions actually. First is how did I know from our previous episode that how Apple generates most of its profits from iPhone. We'll discuss that. And then the second question came from one of our messenger group. She had a question about if I have 5,000 US dollars right now, where do I invest? And then we're going to our next topic, valuation for the stock market sentiments, the bull and the bear. How me and Kuya Wawi look at market sentiments and see where the market temperature is at, kung boiling hot ba to o ano nangyari. Stock of the week, which Kuya Wawi would be providing. Our finance word of the week, a book recommendation, and quote of the week before we close. So on what's up with Wall Street, I will share my screen, Kuya Wawi, and I'll go ahead. Let's see. That way our YouTube listeners would be, or viewers would be able to see some of the charts that we're looking at. So share natin to. So hopefully you guys see the screen I have pulled up. So this is found on my small website, blog site. I post here some charts on a regular basis. So this chart shows here yung Nasdaq tsaka yung Dow Jones. So for our
Wow.
listeners who are just following now, we discussed in a previous episode where Nasdaq is actually an index of tech giants like Facebook, Google, Apple, yung mga tech giants, compared to yun yung Nasdaq, compared to Dow Jones, which is the top 30 companies, industrial companies. Basically, sila yung reopening play kumbaga. Kung nag-open yung market, yung economy coming from COVID, people are saying that these stocks definitely should outperform. But as you can see in this screenshot that I have, for the past couple of weeks, actually yung tech are outperforming compared to the Dow Jones. So it just means that, yung analysts that were saying, oh, bili kayo ng banks or industrials, medyo they got it wrong on this time. What do you think, Kuya Wally?
Well, at least for yesterday, yan ang nakita natin
Mhm.
na bumaba yung Dow Jones, tumaas yung
Right.
Nasdaq.
Right.
As you know, ako heavy ako sa technology since
Right.
2020. I've been investing heavily on technology stocks because that was a good hedge during the COVID pandemic.
Exactly.
And
Medyo nawala.
surprised too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when I saw the divergence yesterday between
Right.
Dow Jones and Nasdaq, yung sentiment ng mga tao, kung ano yung bet nila, di ba? Kung saan
Yes.
medyo panatag ang loob nila mag-invest.
Tech. So basically, going to the different tabs here, ito yung isa sa major companies reopening play, banks actually. JP Morgan, if you could see here for the past month, it's actually falling. It has dropped at least almost 9% since June 4. So bumabagsak ang banks. Meanwhile, in comparison, yung mga tech like Google, they're climbing up. So for some reason, I would just like to point this out because sometimes analysts would say, even hedge funds would like tell you, nag-a-advise sila through interviews that you would like to invest in like reopening plays or banks, but in as a result, it looks like it's happening otherwise. So in this chart naman, I'm showing the blue line here, which is the growth companies. This is the Russell 1000 growth. The blue one is clearly outperforming the Russell Value 1000 companies. So this just shows that growth stocks are outperforming once again the value stocks. This is another chart that we're looking at. Lumber. So back in May, I think, or April, Kuya Wawi, no, yung real estate, they're saying that house prices have added at least 30 to 40,000 price on top of the selling price because of lumber going up and cost of lumber. But now it looks like it has dropped at least 40% from the peak, from $1,700 now down to $900.
Pero hindi pa rin nila binababaan ng presyo ng mga new houses.
Yes, so
maybe it will follow later down the road, but I expect houses to remain high.
Right.
New houses to remain high after this ramp up in prices of lumber.
Definitely, because there's always demand for housing. People would like to buy their house. People would like to rent to live in. So ito na naman yung isang chart. I pulled it up from Goldman Sachs. It just showed here, as late as May, they were actually trying to sell tech companies, global tech. So the red ink here shows that hedge funds, or what we call smart money, the ones with the $1 billion funds to invest in, that's all they do all day. They just find stocks or whatever to invest in para mag-generate ng returns for their investors. They were actually selling back in as late as May. So they might have missed this recent outperformance of the growth stocks. So this is another screenshot that I took. For the past month, technology rising by 8% compared to, let's say, pinaka poor performance, basic materials, which we're looking at earlier, lumber, whatever, copper, like inflation. Because of inflation, it's actually, underperforming recently. So ito sinasabi nila, another article from Bloomberg, old world order is back in stocks as reopening trade takes lumps. Basically, it's just summarizing what we've just talked about. Growth is outperforming value stocks. Ito, another article from CNBC published recently. Great value rotation in the stock market may already be over as investors embrace tech again. So looks like yung rotation, Kuya Wawi, it's happening.
Mhm.
Really relevant. And
But
I think
but
as
how long will that last?
yeah,
Diba? Parang
that's a good question.
syempre
Mhm.
when the economy stabilizes, people are gonna look for value.
Mhm.
So what are the value stocks or value funds that people can go in?
Right. Oh, just additional to our disclosure to our listeners, these are like not, I would say, not investment advice, but we're sharing like factual information to our listeners who would like to be updated, because this is our part of our like what's up with Wall Street segment. So we're just reviewing what the recent events are in the Wall Street environment. So right now, hedge funds are looking into ito na naman sila, pumapasok na sila sa oil. So something to watch out for. Like there are, at least in the US, only two major oil companies, which are Exxon and Chevron. I myself am invested in these two. How about you, Kuya Wawi? Are you exposed in oil, or most of the time you're still at least mostly exposed to tech?
Mostly tech, pero meron akong energy stock, yung NEE, so Nextera Energy.
Okay.
And I'm looking at RDS, Royal Dutch Shell.
Oh,
But
Shell.
yeah, but I have not hindi pa ako nagba-valuation
Right.
recently. But I'm hearing some good news about RDS, about adopting some changes
Hmm.
towards some low carbon emission
Right.
changes within their company. So I'm looking at RDS.
Medyo may negative impression na sa Royal Dutch Shell, Kuya Ari, just to share my experience sa company. So
Okay.
during COVID or before COVID, I was actually invested in Shell, by big amount. Tapos kasi yung dividends nila is I think 8 to 10% back then. Pero what caught me off guard is after decades of reliable dividends, kahit nung nag-crash yung market at 2008, 2009, they kept paying their dividends. Except last year, they cut their dividends in almost to like pennies, like 10
Mm.
cents. So during that time, nawala talaga yung stock kasi once a company cuts its dividend, usually it drops, the stock price drops because yung mga investors looking for that dividends are bailing out, lalo na yung mga hedge funds or fund managers that were relying on the income. So I thought the company would.
That's a good input.
Mhm.
Mukhang kailangan tingnan ko yung cash flow pag
Right. So
yeah, pag
usually,
tiningnan ko yung stock na yan.
yes, usually cash flow should be able to support the dividends, which we will tackle maybe in the future episodes, deeply diving into these companies' numbers. Pero yun nga, medyo na bad trip ako nun personally. Sabi ko,
Mhm.
bakit niya kinat yung dividend? Exxon nga, tsaka Chevron, kahit baon na sa utang, tuloy pa rin sila mag-dividend to their shareholders. Hindi sila nag-quit. So, malaking
Mhm.
conviction ko sa Exxon tsaka Chevron at this time.
Yeah,
Right,
malalaking company yan
yeah,
yung Exxon.
their
Mhm.
stock price is around 60 in Exxon, and Bank of America, which I closely follow, they're projecting the stock price to be at 90. So in addition to the 5% annual payout nila. So jumping
Mhm.
on to the next topic, inflation, Kuya Wawi, look at this screenshot. Hopefully our YouTube viewers will be able to. But don't worry, listeners. I will just discuss to you guys what I'm looking at the window right now. So ito, screenshot lang to ng isang nag-grocery sa Costco. Halos lahat ng bilihin niya, like for example, bacon, nag-increase in price. So bacon back in November 15 of last year, it was $14. Now it's $19, increase of $5, which is translates into 35% rise in price. So actually kahapon nag-report yung Federal Reserve, which is our central bank here in the US, who dictates our interest rates kung tataasan ba nila or bababa. They increased their interest inflation targets or expectations for the year by 1 percentage point to 3.4%, which is a lot higher than previously expecting. Pero overall, Kuya Wawi, they're still saying that this is transitory. What do you think?
Oh, well, I don't believe it's transitory. I think, well, we're already on the inflationary stage ng
Right.
recovery natin.
Mhm.
Ang nakakapigil lang sa inflation kasi yung quantitative easing ng Federal Reserve.
Right.
Bili sila ng bili, di ba, ng corporate shares
Right.
and bonds.
Yep.
Up 120 billion every day.
Exactly.
Mas maganda
Every
siguro
month.
ibigay na lang sa atin yun, di ba?
Yes. So,
Kahit 1
so-
million lang sa atin, di ba?
yeah,
Every day.
so for our listeners, what's happening is since nag-COVID, nag-lockdown lahat, actually nag-freeze yung market, walang liquidity. There's no money to be found. So what our government, not government, but Federal Reserve did, which is our central bank, bank of banks, kumbaga, they provided liquidity sa market. So they started purchasing bonds, mostly $120 billion every month. Tapos nag-invest sila ng kaunti sa mga exchange traded funds din sa stock market to prop up the market at least. Tapos nag-support din sila ng mga stimulus checks sa mga citizens. So actually this flood of money now is resulting to much more demand for for products that we need to survive on a daily basis, like in our picture right here is sugar, bacon, gas, lahat sila tumataas na at this point. So that's inflation for you. Tapos ito Kuya Wawi, sinabi ko kanina about Bitcoin. United States, if you're living in the United States and investing Bitcoin, you probably recognize how profitable Bitcoin is, at least for 2020. Much of the profits being realized by Bitcoin investors or speculators, dito sila sa US nakaka-realize sila ng malaking gains in Bitcoins. One thing that I would want to take from this chart is like the realized gains na short-term gains. For example, like what me and Kuya Wawi discussed before, if you're gonna invest, if you hold on to your investment for the long term, mas maliit yung taxes na babayaran mo. Pero if you kept your investment for less than a year, definitely you're gonna be paying at your personal tax rate.
Tama. So hold for the long term.
Hold for long term. Pero this chart shows, Kuya Wawi, looks like many of US Bitcoin investors have been selling or realized at least a good amount of profits nung last year, 2020. So as you can see here, Bitcoin is kind of like all over the place. Back in April, it was as high as how much though? That's almost $60,000 per Bitcoin. Tapos now it's trading around $38,000. So it's quite a ride, I would say. Not for the weak heart, for sure.
Yes.
Ito
Medyo
naman,
volatile.
yes. Jumping on to our next one is real estate. So, Kuya Wawi have pointed this out where BlackRock or sino pa nga ba, Kuya Wawi, yung Wall Street, mga thumbguns were buying up real estate.
Oh yeah. So mandaming malalaking companies na bumibili ng mga bahay so they can set up their Airbnb oligopoly.
Right.
And then you have companies like Fundrise funding parang ano siya, crowdsourcing fund para sa real estate. And then you have these big companies like Blackstone and WP Carey that a friend of mine brought about. Hi Christina, thanks for sharing. And so makikita mo yung movement ng malalaking companies that owns like billions of dollars in funds and real estate trying to capture the market.
Yes.
So anong nakikita kong trend dito? So nakikita ko dito, since they're taking on all this real estate, different kinds, maybe by 2022, 2023, magkakaroon pa rin ng short market.
Right.
Pagdating sa mga bahay, sa mga rentals, kasi kinuha ng malalaking kumpanya.
Parang yung goal nila is to just, have US residents to be renters, kumbaga, compared to homeowners. So as much as possible, you want to be owning a property to begin with. Sabi nga ni Robert Kiyosaki, di ba? That's one way of
Yes.
improving your wealth over the long term. Kasi you're paying your mortgage, you're building your equity, kumpara naman sa pag nagre-rent ka, nagbabayad ka, yung landlord, o yung homeowner yung kumikita. So itong news article na to from Fox, it just says here that most of the buying that's happening right now, it's actually being bought up from coming from Wall Street. So it says here, institutional operators owned about 300,000 single-family units in 2019. So and ever increasing sila. So baka kasi yung demand na nangyayari ngayon sa housing, it's being propelled not only by first-time home buyers but by Wall Street. Ito yung
I
ibang
think a big chunk is coming from Wall Street.
right. Okay. So in basic terms, law of supply and demand lang naman yan eh. So the more demand, the less supply, the higher the prices go, which tends to explain yung price gains ng house ngayon. In addition to the increasing lumber price, which now we just saw, nagda-drop na siya, nagko-correct na siya. So ito yung ibang information about real estate for our listeners. Purchasing index has slightly slowed down pero mataas pa rin siya. Next is the houses yet to be built. For our listeners, you might want to check this out sa website ko, which is blog site lang siya, perennialinvesting.com. I just shared random charts over there. Marami pa ring demand. Maraming na-approve na housing to be built pero hindi pa siya nagagawa at this point of time. So right now, we're reaching the peak. Actually, we just passed the peak of 2006 in terms of housing units approved to be built but have not been started. So it means, tama ka Kuya Wawi, ang raming demand for housing pero hindi pa siya nagagawa despite all the activities that's happening right now. One good thing that I've found out recently is kahit na, people are still not working at this point of time, jobless claims are still high up there because they're, some of them decide not to go back to work because they still get unemployment benefits. Yung delinquency or forbearances na hindi sila nagbabayad sa mortgage is going down. So this indicates, on the other hand, that we have a reliable real estate at this point of time. 71% of Americans also expect that local home prices will be increasing still over the long term. Although yung yung interest nila in terms of plans to buy a home at this point of time is actually decreasing. So yung appetite ng mga locals or citizens to buy real estate at this point of time is actually decreasing despite the low interest rates. Probably because mataas na rin yung home prices at this point of time. Pero yeah, going back, what's more important I think, is the forbearances. It means somehow stable yung real estate kasi hindi nagpapanik or continue pa rin magbayad ng mga tao sa mga mortgage nila. Yeah, going to the next topic. Ito Kuya Wawi, mabilis lang to kasi I think I've been mentioning this stock for like at least a couple of our episodes. AMC Theaters.
Ayun, siya na naman.
To the moon. So right now, this stock is up 2,000% for the year. Pero this just brings to my attention isang hedge fund who actually benefited from investing in it. Pero in the end, he still lost a lot of money. So in summary, Mudrik Capital is like a hedge fund. They got into agreement with AMC back in December na mag-invest sila ng 230 million sa company to at least provide liquidity sa company para hindi sila mag-file ng bankruptcy. Pero right after the public announcement back in June, binenta niya agad yung investments niya in stocks, realizing like $100-something million in gains. Pero a later report, like 4 days ago lang to lumabas, actually na tinamaan pa rin siya ng losses kahit na naka-benefit siya sa 230 million investment niya. Kasi because the hedge fund invested in the company for 230 million. So that's betting that the stock price will go up. Pero at the same time, nag-hedge siya kasi hedge fund siya. So he was trying to protect his gains. So nag-short din siya at the same time. So nagawa ang, in short for listeners, hopefully this doesn't go too much technical. So naka-invest siya 230 million, nag-increase yung stock price, binenta niya agad. Pero at the same time, hindi niya na-close yung short bet niya, Kuya Wawi. Hindi niya na-close agad yung short position niya. So,
Patay.
nabenta niya yung long niya, na-gain na niya ng 100 million whatever, naka-short pa rin siya the following day. So, the following day, nag-spike agad yung AMC. So, naka-short siya to protect his bet. Ang problema nun, hindi niya na-close agad yung short niya, tumaas yung price, boom, nakain yung profits niya. In the end, he lost about 5%.
Na short squeeze.
Na short
Short
squeeze na naman siya because
Short
of the
squeeze.
AMC rising. Right now, pre-market AMC is actually flat, almost 1% gain. Ewan ko na lang.
Well,
for
I'm gonna expound on that AMC
Sure,
thing
yeah, go
kasi
ahead.
sinimulan muli.
Sige,
Yung-
go ahead, Kuya Wawi. I'm listening.
So, yung August niya, options niya, merong bullish trend talaga. So, a lot of bettors are seeing that AMC will still go up. Siguro dahil iniisip nila mag-open na naman, di ba? So, people will go to the theaters.
Reopening play, yes.
So, I read an article saying that the strike price is going up like 75 to 120. So I did check to verify if it's true. Yeah, by August strike price is like 75.
August end of this year, Kuya Wawi.
Yeah, August of this year is 75. So yung 120, I didn't see it, but it may be next year. So that's what's pushing it. There's a lot of interest in what's going on, and people are trying to FOMO, climb on board while it's rising up.
FOMO, fear of missing out. Nako, yan yung pinakamahirap iwasan, lalo na if you're a beginner. No, Kuya Wawi, lahat pinag-uusapan. Pumili ka na ito, grabe yung gains ko. Tapos ikaw na yung person na late to the news and then trying to jump in on the last ride going up. So,
yeah, so wag ka maiinggit.
Try to focus on your goal. Actually, pointing it out, Kuya Wawi, that's a very good example, no? Yung FOMO na yan. Kasi there's a New York Times article. I don't know if our viewers can see this, pero I'm just gonna read through it para fair na rin sa ating mga listeners. So there's a New York Times article that says Robinhood has lured young traders sometimes with devastating results. So most of the time we hear all these good news na, this guy made so much money sa stock. Pero ito, actually is one of the downsides. So there's this guy, Richard Dobatse, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. He's just 32 years old, same age as me. She was charmed by Robinhood's on one-click trading, easy investment products. So ang ginawa niya, Kuya Wawi, nag-invest siya a little bit at first, tapos nag-pull out na siya ng dinagdagan. Nakita niya yung results right away. Siguro, it doesn't say here kung anong stock in-invest niya, pero more likely one of the meme stocks which are trending at that time, back in February. So, ang ginawa niya, nag-pull out siya ng credit card niya, nag-advance siya ng $15,000 as in-invest niya. So, nakita niya yung positive gains. Now, this time, nag-lose siya ng money a little bit. So, inisip niya, mag-gain niya ulit yung nag-gain niya at the first try. So, he took out a home equity loan. $30,000. Dalawang equity loans of $30,000. So, that's $60,000 hoping to pay off his debts once nag-gain yung mga speculative meme stocks na.
Naguhukay ng utang. Oh my goodness.
Utang siya ng utang. Nilipat niya lahat sa Robinhood niya. Tapos bili siya ng kung ano man, nagta-trending Wall Street bets, FOMO, YOLO, lahat. His account value, ito Kuya Wawi, his account value shot above $1 million. So actually, $6,000 to $1 million, that's amazing performance. I mean, if I can do that, I'll be retiring in Hawaii right now. Hawaii Beach. Pero ang problema niya, in one sentence, his account value shot above $1 million this year. In one sentence ito. But almost all of that recently disappeared. So, ang sakit nun. So, easy come, easy go eh. So, tumaas, bumaba. Tapos this week, at the time of this article's published back in February 2021, this week his balance was just $6,956. So
Oh,
you can see here how how unpredictable, how crazy it is if you decide to join the meme trade, yung mga Wall Street bettors na yan. So it's very risky. I would say easy come, easy go. What do you think, Kuya Wawi?
I agree with you, Mark. Yeah. So don't I'm not gonna give anybody advice, but I'm trying to tell myself, don't take on that type of risk.
Right.
Make sure you know what you're buying. Okay. Always think about investing instead of trading, unless you have a lot of experience trading.
Right.
Think about investing in the long term.
Yes.
Patience ang kailangan mo talaga pagdating sa investing.
Yes.
Saka do your homework.
Yes. Tsaka basically, it's all about taxes in the end because there are two certain things in life, as I would say it, death and taxes. Siguro meron famous quote. So taxes, let's just say bumili ka ng $500,000 worth of AMC, nagdoble siya, naging 1 million, gusto mong ibenta. So yung profits mo na 500,000, actually that will be taxed right away, 40% of your personal tax or whichever 30%. Sa government agad yun. So hindi mo makukuha yung $500,000 gain mo, magiging let's say 400 or 300,000 na lang. Compared to when you have really like high conviction dun sa stock na yun or sa company na yun, syempre gusto mo hawakan siya in the long term. Mas maliit yung tax babayaran mo pag kailangan mo siya over the long term, 15%. So going on to our next topic, may nagtanong, paano ko raw nalaman ba't yung iPhone ang nag-generate ng most profits ng Apple? So basically, me and Kuya Wawi, we like to do this in our investments. No? For example, Apple, they have their website. If you type in Google, Apple space investor relations, you can actually access this freely. I go to the Apple's investor relation financial data here. You can see in your screen. I usually go to the 10Q or 10K. So these are terms usually used by Wall Street. For our listeners, this is important, lalo na if you're really deciding to go for long term. 10K just means annual report. Ito na pala. Annual report is 10K. 10Q, Q meaning quarterly reports. So in a year, there are 4 quarters. This is Q1, first quarter, Q2, 10Q. So pag inopen mo yan, inopen ko tong 10Q, makikita mo dito sa next window for our YouTube viewers. For our YouTube listeners or Spotify, Google Podcast, you don't have to worry. I'll discuss this as simple as I can. So sa page 11 ng filing ng Apple, it says here their breakdown. iPhone, MacBook, or whatever Mac, iPad, wearables, which is their iWatch probably, and then services, their app. So as you can see here, from January 1st to March 27 of this year, first quarter, Apple generated $47.9 billion dollars in sales in iPhone. That's more than, I would say just a little bit half. 47 divided by 89, that's like 89.5. That's 54% of their business. So that's how I see the company making its profits. Actually, this is sales. Profits, we can't, but Apple didn't say how many they make from Apple iPhone itself. Pero self-explanatory, ang laki ng kinikita nila sa iPhone alone. So as I would say it, as I would put it, Apple makes a lot of money from their iPhone. Next, they make a lot of money from their services, which is as here, Apple Care, digital content, and other services like iCloud storage, Apple TV, yung mga subscription na yan. So they generated almost 17 billion, but not as much as iPhone, which is almost 48 billion or 54% of their sales back in first quarter. So next one is the ito yung sentiment na diniscuss natin, Kuya Mami. This is like part of our things to discuss. But before we jump on the sentiment, Kuya Mami, what do we have on your end? What's up with Wall Street?
Well, so nothing much around what's going on, rather than yung sentiment about inflation. We hear a lot about natatakot yung mga tao, natataas ang presyo ng lahat. But you have to realize we're already in there. Just expect the trend to go up, in my opinion.
Right.
Natataas talaga ang presyo ng lahat. Just prepare, keep saving,
Right.
investing in the stock market may be a good avenue to protect yourself from what's coming. Kasi
Actually,
tataas ang presyo, di ba?
Actually, that's a good one that you brought up, Kuya Wawi. Saving right now, as we've discussed on our previous episode, savings rate are going down. Less than 1% if you put your money in the bank. Whereas the Fed, as actually we discussed earlier, is now expecting 3.4%. So if you kept your money for 1 year, at least until the end of this year, rugi ka. Kasi yung inflation rate, 3%, tapos yung savings mo, 0 something percent. So in the end, wala kang kinita, negative ka pa na yung money mo nag-shrink pa siya lalo compared to the mga bilihin, mga daily stuff that we're actually, needing. So if you have extra money, it's better to put it somewhere that will generate more return. So like in the stock market. So going on to our next topic, it's the sentiment. So this is what I look at, Kuya Wawi, this is what I look at minsan from time to time. It's what they call the American Association of Individual Investors Sentiment Survey. So ang daming tinatake into account dito, almost 2 million plus individuals that are invested in the stock market. So like what me and Kuya Wawi have explained earlier on our previous broadcast, yung bull and bear market. So bullish, it means that people are investing that the stock market will go up. Bearish, stock market will go down. Neutral, of course, self-explanatory. So as of 2 days ago, recent survey nila, 41% of the 2 million plus investors are thinking that the market will go up, because it says here 41% are bullish compared to the 38% historical average. So people are thinking that the market will go up. Ito yung isang chart that I looked at as well. This is the bull and bear graph of the American AAII na lang. American Association of Individual Investors. So the green are the bears, the blue or light blue are the bulls. So don't worry, listeners, if you don't see this chart, if you're not able to see it from YouTube, or you're just listening while you're doing your groceries, don't worry about it. What's important here is I just want to highlight back in March of last year, nung nag-lockdown, Kuya Wawi, look at this chart, nag-spike yung bears to like not seen before, very high. It means yung bears, sobrang taas ng sentiment that time, tapos yung bulls very low. So it just shows na very high or pessimistic kumbaga, or bearish yung sentiment ng mga investors during that period. So people were actually thinking na babagsak na yung market, babagsak pa yung market. Pero in the end, actually, it was the best time to buy during that time. Tapos in comparison,
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure, go ahead.
What you just said na usually pag natatakot yung mga tao bumili, maybe that's a market opportunity to find bargains.
Right.
So ang isa sa tinitingnan ko rin yung VIX, and I think I
Okay.
shared it on the screen.
Sure.
Yung volatility.
Yeah, so stop ko yung share screen ko, tapos ikaw ko yung mag-share screen. Let's see how to stop share. Ayun. Nice. It worked.
So I'm just gonna share it for a few seconds. So ito, 1 month to ng VIX. So medyo mababa siya, and then nung nagkaroon na ng mga inflationary fears, yung mga balita sa market, medyo tumaas na yung VIX. Papataas siya ngayon. Today is trending up. So I tend to follow this because naka-base yata ito sa price to earnings ng mga di ba, ng mga stocks. Saka yung mga short options, yung mga option calls, yung mga bet ng mga tao sa stock market naka-peg sa S&P 500 na mga bet ng mga investors, mga companies and mga tao.
Right.
So this is a simple chart to see kung ano yung bet nila sa market, if they're scared or if they want to pull out or if they want to go in.
Right.
So when it goes up like that, I'd like to see kung ano yung market opportunity. Ano ba yung mga companies na magandang bilihin? Ano yung bumababa yung presyo?
Sure.
Usually, I look at value companies.
Okay.
Na bumababa ang presyo, and then I try to get in if the price is right.
So Kuya Wawi, if you don't mind, can you pull up yung 1 year or yung longer data ng VIX? Tapos tingnan natin anong nangyari ng lockdown last year. Mga March yun, March.
Okay, so I'll have to pull out a 5-year.
Boom.
Okay. So eto siguro yun. Yan, March, right? Okay, see how high March is. 65.
Oh my gosh. So during that year, that time, no, panic selling talaga yung mga tao. They're trying to exit the stock market. Whereas, in contrast, now that we're looking at it, hindsight is always 2020. It's after the fact that it happened. You can actually see what just happened, what took place. It was the best of best times to buy the stock. To buy a stock.
So at that time, new investor ako. I bought in dito sa range na ito. June ako nagsimulang bumili. Kasi napansin ko people are still scared, but I saw a lot of opportunities. So I started buying around June when I should have bought around this time.
Right. Ang dali sabihin ngayon, no, Kuya Wawi, pero during that time, I remember in our group, I was actually also panicking. I was selling some of my stocks. Tapos in return, I felt like, bakit ako nagbebenta? So binili ko agad sila pabalik. Pero yun nga, ang hirap that time because all you think about is people dying. All you could see in the TV screens are like daily death counts, all in red ink. Nagsha-shut down yung market. You cannot buy, you cannot sell. The Fed is losing its head. Parang di nila alam gagawin nila. Pero in the end, they announced that they will support the market liquidity. Si Bill Ackman, Kuya Wawi, no, di ba? In interview sa CNBC, sabi niya, Trump has to do this, Trump has to do that. Si Cuomo is asking for naval ships, US Navy, to provide excess hospital bunkers, pero hindi naman niya nagamit. Pero it's
yeah, people didn't know what to do because that's the first time it happened.
Yes.
Na ganun kabilis ang rate ng infection and it's shutting down cities, shut down New York.
It's
so a lot of fear.
Yeah, definitely fear. Oh, speaking of fear, Kuya Awi, this is the fear gauge. So one of the famous saying by Warren Buffett about fear is buy when there's fear, blood on the streets. Is that right, Kuya Awi? Ano ba yung quote niyan?
So basically, when everyone is scared of buying, that's when you when everyone is selling, that's when you buy. When there's fear.
Right. Fear. Quote.
So the VIX is also what we call the fear index. So when there's a high rate of fear, that tells you there might be some opportunities.
So this is what Warren Buffett has to say about fear. It is wise for investors to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. So as a result, ito ang magandang gauge actually, Kuya Wawi. Buti pinakita mo itong VIX na to. Kasi, the more fear there is in the market, the higher this gauge goes up. Like, for example, nung March, diba, grabe, 66 all-time high yata yung Kuya Wawi. Pero it's hard to say, hindsight is 2020. We can always be perfect when we look at history. So The next thing is the valuation on our topic. What do I look at in the valuation of a market? If I could share my screen quickly. This is the Seeking Alpha, itong website ito, which is very helpful. You don't have to be a subscriber. So they ito yung ano ko paboritong stock ko is if you don't if you haven't observed Apple. Apple pa rin. So
Paborito ng marami.
Paborito ng marami din to eh. So ang tinitingnan ko dito usually sa Apple, there are lots of information. Nakaka-intimidate. Pero there are a couple of things that I just look at. So in terms of valuation, I always look at the market cap. Market cap for our listeners, market capitalization, that's the value of the company itself. Tinignan mo yung company, magkano kaya to at today's price? Ang market cap ng Apple is the world's largest company is $2.17 trillion. So nothing can beat that. Apple lang ang pinakamalaking company at this point of time. Couple of things I look at sa valuation is PE or price to earnings. Usually this means that is price over earnings. That's what it says. Yung market price niya over earnings. So medyo complicated siya, pero it just means ito yung valuation na yan. 30 times. Ang maganda sa Seeking Alpha na website is they also show yung median or 50% ng sector ng Apple. Kung compared to its peers, ang average ng peers niya, yung mga comparison niya is 27 times. Siya at 30. So it means medyo mahal siya compared sa mga kapatid niya or same companies in its field. 10% higher. Tapos
Kasi popular siya eh.
Mhm.
Maraming may gusto sa kanya kaya mataas ang PE niya.
Right. So at this point of time, compared sa peers, medyo valuable ang Apple. Usually personally, I would want to buy into a company if it's less than its peers. It means na undervalued siya. Tapos in terms of his 5-year average, ito na, hindi walang subscription needed, 21 times compared to now 30 times. So actually overvalued siya ng 40% compared to its 5-year historical average. So I wouldn't, in particular, kahit big investor ako sa Apple, I wouldn't be buying its shares at this point of time. Just basing it here, pero it's not like an investment advice. You could always consult your investment advisor, pero I mean, yeah, PE is one thing I always look at. The other one I looked at as well is price to book. This one right here. Price to book value right now is, well, price to book is market price over yung book value ng company. This is what Warren Buffett and Benjamin Graham prefers to look at. That's why I also look at it. Price to book right now is 32 times. Ang value ng Apple right now at $2.2 trillion is trading at 32 times its assets minus liabilities. So napakataas nito. Look at this. Yung average ng mga kapatid niya is 5 times lang. So Apple is actually 530% higher than its peers. So overvalued siya.
And papakita ko sa iyo mamaya sa stock pick ko for the day na mas mataas dyan.
We'll be heading there shortly, Kuya Wawi, because this is the only thing that I looked at for our listeners, no? Price to earnings and price to book. So if it's a lot higher than its history, a lot higher than its peers, then more likely it's overvalued at this time. Given the market sentiment, going back to what Kuya Wawi just discussed, the VIX index, right now I'm feeling like the market is greedy in Apple. Even a big investor sa Apple. So I think that's what I have on my screen. Sige, Kuya Wawi, stop ko yung share ko. Let's say. Okay, Kuya Wawi, it's your turn to share your screen.
Just go ahead with eto na eh kasi ang stock pick kasi.
Right, yeah. So what is your stock of the week, Kuya Wawi? What is your stock of the week?
So I'm forced to put in Tesla as my stock of the week.
Okay. Why Tesla?
Why? Because right now still siya pa rin ang walang competition. Pero speaking of PE, napakataas ng PE kasi nitong Tesla eh. So let me share Google screen here.
Sige, Kuya Wally.
Uh,
Good yan. For YouTube
uh,
listeners, let us know if we're doing a good job with our screen sharing. For our Google Podcasts and Spotify listeners, we truly appreciate you because I know most of you guys are really busy. You don't have the time to watch the videos, pero you listen to us. That alone, shows your support to our, little small channel.
and so looking at Tesla, it's up like 2% from yesterday.
Mhm.
It's up at 616. Let's see if we can pull up some charts here. There's the news.
Oh,
Let's
may
see.
financing pala sila, no? Kuya Wally. Financial part.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's very detailed.
Uh-huh. Ito
As you can see,
yung profit
they
margin.
they got some profit margin in here.
For our listeners at this episode, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, we discuss in detail ano ang importance ng net profit margin.
So yeah, we discussed that last podcast. So you can see it's got 4.22%. Kumikita naman siya when before it was not earning very well.
Right, it shows year change din. Ibig sabihin, kumpara nung last year, the same period, tumaas siya ng 1,500%. Totoo ba yan, Kuya Wawi?
Yeah, yes.
Grabe, ano?
Well, so since it doesn't have any competitors, I think that's why it's still earning. Hindi siya ganun ka-detailed, ano?
Medyo ano lang ako dyan sa Tesla, Kuya. Although I have really small investments in Tesla because I do think medyo wala talaga silang competitors. Meron lang silang Chinese competitor that I'm quite wary about, which is NIO. So, ito lang yung worry ko kasi yung mga station ng mga charging station ng Tesla, no, Kuya Wawi. Kasi people drive and then they go to a charging station to refuel their batteries, so they wait there for a couple of hours. Ang nakita ko sa NIO sa China, they developed this
battery swapping, I guess.
Quite smart kasi battery swapping yung technology niya. So people go there, yung station yun, change lang yung battery and that would happen in like 10-15 minutes. So value for time versus charging up. So I think that's one critical no? Unless Tesla decides to copy what China is doing. So I don't know. Over the long term, if NIO gets approved here, yung battery stations na. So we have yet to research on that. If NIO is starting to build like charging station like that, because definitely that will cut into time. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I see that Tesla has supercharging. Sa kanilang supercharging station, I think you can supercharge at 15 minutes and get up to 80% of your battery charge.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So parang at least in par sila compared to their very close competitors, I would say NIO is something to watch out for. Pero i-discuss siguro natin yan in the future. Dissect natin yung numbers nila.
Yes. So I'm looking at Tesla. I can't pull up the price to earnings ratio ng Tesla right now.
Sure. Let me look at it. And before we jump onto the Tesla valuation, Kuya Wawi, let's give a shout out to one of our members in our Facebook group and also very avid listener, follower, si Ate Eva.
Hi, Eva.
She has a question. Ito, Kuya Wawi, I'll let you answer this first. I have $5,000 right now. Where do I invest it?
Okay, well, if you're a beginner, mas maganda mag-invest sa index fund. And I'm a proponent of index fund investing, especially for retirement. I would suggest yung S&P 500 index fund like VOO ng Vanguard or FXAIX Fidelity. It's tied up to the S&P 500 performance. So kung titingnan mo yung S&P 500 over the years, it's trending na papataas talaga siya over the years. And I'm sharing my screen right now, and looking at a 5-year performance,
Mhm.
you can see when it dropped nung COVID-19, tas ngayon tumaas na siya, di ba? And over the years, right? So from 2017 to 2021, you can see the trajectory. It's a safe investment.
Mhm.
Pero having said that, kung meron kang 5,000 and you don't
Right.
want to put it all in one egg in
Uh-huh.
your basket, right? So pagdating sa investment, you think of like having a basket of eggs or produce. So kung gusto mong medyo diversified yung investment mo, um, you invest in the index fund because you can't get more diversified than that. Or if you're interested in stocks, then you can you can buy a little bit of this stock, a little bit of that stock, and then medyo i-diversify mo yung holdings mo
Right.
sa different sectors ng market if you're interested.
Right. So sa akin naman, Kuya Wawi, if I have $5,000, this brings to us sort of dun sa ano natin, word of the week, finance word of the week, Kuya Wawi, cost averaging. So may $5,000 ako, new investor ako, and I want to put it to a safe investment, which, Marky and Wawi always recommends to invest it in stock market. pero Pero you wanna be sure na, you can always be able to hedge your risk. Kasi ayaw mo naman all in one go put it all in AMC. Nako, delikado yan.
Delikado.
So, ang maganda sa 5,000 sa cost averaging, as we will be discussing, so that's our word of the week, cost averaging, is you want to make sure at the long term you just keep buying, investing over the long term, whichever you can, put into market, put your money, hard-earned money, work hard for you. Para in the end, meron kang marireap na benefits when you need the money the most, or when you're retiring, for vacation spending, mga ganun. So, ang advice ko sa $5,000, like for example, maganda yung point ni Kuya Wawi. You invest it in an index fund or an ETF. So, an ETF, like what we've discussed in the first episode, is like a combination siya ng lots of stocks, different companies in the whole world. Like what Kuya Wawi is pulling up right now is VOO. It's one of the largest index fund in the market. So, ang pros nito is you're very diversified. It's invested in major companies. Kung nag-down ang market, magda-down siya pero not a whole lot compared to Apple, let's say, or Google, na pag tinapon mo lahat sa Apple, tapos bumagsak yung Apple ng 10%, 10% agad yung kaltas sa investment mo. Whereas pag in-invest mo siya sa ETF, baka yung down niya compared to Apple's performance is not so much. So you gain a little bit of safety, you get exposure to the stock market in general. That's how you do it on the safe side. Ang cost averaging, pumapasok yan. Like for example, if you have $5,000, I would probably divide that into 3 months. $5,000 divided by 3, mahinang solving natin. So that's almost $1,700 a month for the next 3 months. You want to be putting $1,700 into work at least once a month. Or, you're buying a certain stock for $1,700.
That's a good point.
Hmm.
And since the market is volatile,
Right.
when you dollar cost average, it can smooth out this volatility. So if
Exactly.
you're putting in like $1,700 a month, which is a lot, my goodness, probably $300, $100 a month, you can smooth out this rise and fall on the graph kasi nira-ride mo lang siya eh.
Yeah,
You're riding the volatility.
Yes.
Especially nowadays, it will smoothen out this graph when you invest dollar cost averaging. So hindi masyadong shocking, lalo na kung natatakot ka dahil yung market ay pataas at pababa.
Right.
Medyo mababawasan yung takot mo kasi na-average mo yung performance ng investment mo.
Exactly. Yun yung maganda sa cost averaging. You're not, like what we have already discussed, me and Kuya Wawi, time in the market is beats timing the market. So you don't want to time the market kasi ang hirap gawin yan lahat. Wall Street is doing that. They pay their bankers, they pay their traders millions of dollars just to time the market. So kahit sila nahihirapan sila. So just do your research, especially like what me and Kuya Wawi are doing. We're trying to dissect each and every company that we encounter. Definitely in our episode, next episode, we're gonna take a closer look at these ETFs or VOO index fund. Definitely yung competitor ni Tesla, which is NIO. We're gonna be taking a closer look at that. Tapos ito yung valuation, I think, ng Tesla, Kuya Wawi. Let me share my screen right here quickly for those who are looking at YouTube. To our listeners, don't worry. So ito yung tinitingnan ko, Kuya Wawi, PE, price over earnings. Tesla, Kuya Wawi, taas 211 times earnings. What do you think?
Yes, that's what I was saying a while ago. Compared to Apple, it's hindi siya. Sobra siyang popular kaya ang taas ng valuation niya. So when you look at PE, you have to think then kung ano yung forecast ng tao for the stock. So since it's a popular stock, everybody likes it. Well, not everybody, some people diss it too. But when you look at Tesla, there's a lot of valuation towards the future. So some people are looking at, okay, ito mangyayari, there's an EV trend. So when people, talk about EV, or a company talks about, implementing some battery vehicles, tumataas yung kanilang stock price. Like Ford, GM, they are planning on building some new EV cars, and when they say that and it goes out on the news, you can see their stock price go up with the news. I think Tesla was ahead of that trend because they actually produced a car and now building some factories to produce more of these cars. And that's why their PE is so high. Actually, that already went down from a very high valuation. I think people are slowly valuating Tesla closer to its true value.
Right.
So 619 siya yesterday. Trefis valuation is around 400 something, 447, I think. So overvalued siya.
Definitely overvalued.
But because of low competition,
right,
I'm thinking as a stock pick for me, it would be a good thing to look at Tesla, to
right,
at least put it on your watch list.
So, Ativa, if you're still listening to our podcast, I believe we somehow answered the question. Pero just to make things clear, $5,000, it's a really good amount of money to start investing. Not a lot of people can say that at this point of time, kahit na may unemployment insurance sila. Most Americans, I think 40-50% don't even have an emergency savings of $3,000. So this is a good start. And over time, we want to build that nest egg. So what I'm thinking, Kuya Wawi, is because we kept on harping on certain stocks to invest in, pero yung valuation nila don't match. So na-confuse siguro yung ibang listeners, ano ba, bibili ba ako ng Apple o hindi? Kasi ang taas ng valuation, bibili ba ako ng Tesla o hindi? So that comes into play, lalo na yung cost averaging na sinasabi namin. So if you're not confident in a stock where it would stock price go up or down, just do yourself a big favor and limit your risk by not putting it all at once at one stock at one go. So you want to divide it, whichever months, how many months you want to be consistently investing. Of course, dadagdag pa yung pondo mo as you earn money and then put in more in the market, which is good. You're playing the long-term game. So if you decide to buy Apple or Google or whatever, you just make sure that monthly you go in and buy at least 1 share, 2 shares para in the long term, nakita nyo yung ginawa ni Kuya Wawi kanina, yung S&P 500 pataas siya, up and down, but over the long term it just goes up. So you don't want to time the market, just be in the market and regardless. So let's go jump into the next segment. Now, Kuya Wawi, humahaba na yung podcast natin. Let's go on to our book recommendation. What's your book recommendation, Kuya Wawi?
Okay, so I'll just put it in front of the screen. Get a Financial Life. This is an old book of mine.
Mhm.
It's a good read. It's from Beth Kobliner from Money Magazine. So it's an old book that I read a long time ago. But if you want to go into detail about, different aspects of investing,
Mhm.
and a little bit more detailed kumpara sa your total wealth na ni-recommend ko last time. Yeah, check this out. Medyo wordy siya.
Aha.
Ngayon, medyo malabo ang mata mo, katulad ko, ilagay mo na lang sa Audible.
Oh, di ba? Ayun, no? So, yun nga yung maganda ngayon nowadays, no, Kuya Wawi, you don't really have to read it, eh. You can play it in your car. Siya yung, writer.
Mhm.
Kolibner. All right. So, through that, ma-open more yung thinking more about investing. Magiging
It's
positive.
a bit more technical,
Mhm.
but if you're interested in learning a little bit more, about finance, yeah, this might be a good one.
Right. So, going on to our last segment in our podcast, our quote of the week, Kuya Wawi. What's your quote of the week?
Okay, so my quote of the week is "Fortune befriends the bold" by Emily Dickinson.
Oh,
Okay.
Yes.
Let me expound. With this quote, one of America's most famous poets sums up how being bold can play a big role in achieving fortune, both financially and in life. Ironically, Dickinson lived much of her life in isolation as a recluse, but her words and writings have been bold and poignant enough to live on for over 130 years since her death.
Wow.
So it's important not to confuse boldness for carelessness or needless risk.
Mhm.
Two things that can quickly drain wealth and do damage to a credit score. Rather, boldness suggests taking real action to achieve your goals instead of passively hoping they will happen.
Right.
What that action is, earning more income, saving more money, building your credit, is ultimately up to you.
Mhm.
So, gusto ko yung quote na yun, "Fortune befriends the bold." So if you don't take any risk,
Mhm.
you're not gonna, gain much of anything dito
Right.
sa mundo. So take a little bit of risk,
Mhm.
if you're scared of investing in the stock market, then try a safer investment, katulad nga na sabi ko,
Mhm.
yung indexes,
Right.
S&P 500. And then paunti-unti lang,
Right.
it's like putting your foot in a pool. Tinetesting mo pa, di ba? Kung malamig yung tubig,
Exactly.
gaano kalalim, di ba?
Mhm.
And especially right now in a what they call uncertain and volatile market environment,
Mhm.
some people that are risk averse or medyo natatakot may want to put a little bit of skin in there,
Right. Ang
uh,
ganda ng quote na yun, Kuya Wawi, no? Like, take action. Kasi if you won't take action, if you won't take risk, who else is gonna take it for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
so you can think all the time, right? You can think and mull about, oh, am I gonna invest? Am
Mm.
I gonna do this? Am I gonna buy this property? But
Right.
unless you do it,
Mhm.
mahirap matuto, di ba?
Exactly.
You can't learn how to cope
Yeah.
on especially in this changing market environment.
Mhm.
Pero ang hindi nagbabago kasi yung emotion ng tao,
Right.
right? So sometimes it helps to have somebody encourage you
Mhm.
to take on the risk or show you the way, or share experiences like what we're doing here.
Right. Yeah, for our listeners, we truly appreciate you. Ang ganda ng quote mo, Kuya Wawi. Nothing can beat that. Well,
Emily Dickinson.
I'll hold on to that for sure. So for our listeners who's still listening to us, thank you so much. It's been an hour that we've been, sharing our information. Yung What's Up with Wall Street, napaka-importanting segment naman yun. At yun ibang segments namin, we're discussing closely how we arrive on our stock picks and our investment decisions. So for next week, I think our listeners deserve more information on the index fund siguro, yung ETF. Thus we'll discuss certain stocks and its competition, like what you've told earlier, Tesla and NIO. Tapos siguro na rin what could justify to our listeners, ano ba yung top 3 investment companies natin that we would be buying into at this point of time? Yung top 3 picks natin despite the valuation, despite the market volatility. That way, medyo actionable. Like for example, sa quote natin, take action. Siguro for listeners, those who want to dive in now in the markets despite the crazy movements or whatever. Because basically, you don't want to time the market. You just want to be in the market benefiting from compounding, which was our previous discussion in our previous podcast. What do you think? Okay ba yung Kuya Wawi? Oops. I think I lost Kuya Wawi over there. Yung signal niya. For listeners still listening, we apologize for the technical issues at this point of time. But we truly appreciate your time listening up to this point. I guess I'm gonna end up our podcast here. Hopefully you still follow us on our future episodes. Please submit any of your questions to YouTube or comment us and request to be joined or invited in our Facebook Messenger group. Once again, you have a great weekend. Take care always. This is Mark Yu signing out.